In a quiet suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, a woman named Sarah found herself caught in a web of confusion and heartache. At 30 years old, she was proud of her long, dark hair and full lips, and she often admired her reflection in the mirror. Yet, despite feeling beautiful, she was painfully aware that her husband, David, no longer desired her. For 6 long years, their marriage had been a roller coaster of emotions. Initially, David would brush off their lack of intimacy by claiming he was simply tired from work or stressed about life's demands. But as time passed, Sarah began to sense that the issue ran deeper than mere exhaustion. David was withdrawing from her, avoiding her touch, and finding excuses to keep his distance. One evening, after a long day, Sarah decided to take matters into her own hands. She slipped into a black lace nightgown that hugged her curves perfectly, feeling a surge of confidence. The fabric felt luxurious against her skin, and she hoped it would rekindle the spark between them. With a deep breath, she approached David, who was lounging on the couch, engrossed in a game on his phone. "Hey, can we talk?" she asked softly, placing a hand on his arm. David glanced up, his expression unreadable. "I'm really tired tonight, Sarah," he replied, his voice lacking the warmth it once held. But Sarah noticed something in his eyes, a flicker of fear, not fatigue. "What's going on, David? Are you avoiding me?" she pressed gently, her heart racing. "Stop it, Sarah. I'm just tired." "You're overreacting," he snapped, frustration creeping into his tone. But she could see through his facade. The problem wasn't with her, it was with him. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah felt increasingly isolated. The emotional distance between them was suffocating. She longed for connection, for intimacy, but every attempt was met with resistance. That morning, she stood before the mirror once more, applying a bold red lipstick that accentuated her features. She styled her hair in soft waves, letting them cascade over her shoulders. Dressed in a form-fitting burgundy dress that highlighted her figure, she felt beautiful and ready to face the world. As she stepped outside, she caught the eye of her neighbor, Mark. He was a friendly face, always quick with a smile and a wave. Today, however, his gaze lingered a moment longer, and Sarah felt a flutter of something. Was it attraction? She quickly shook off the thought, reminding herself of her commitment to David. But as she walked past Mark, their eyes met, and for a brief moment, she felt seen. It was a stark contrast to the way David had been treating her. The warmth of Mark's smile ignited a spark of hope within her, a reminder that she was still desirable. Returning home, Sarah found David in the kitchen, staring blankly at the counter. She approached him, her heart pounding. "Can we talk about us?" she asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. David sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know, Sarah. I don't feel like myself lately," he admitted, his vulnerability surprising her. "Then let's figure it out together," she urged, stepping closer. "I want to help you, but I need you to let me in." He looked at her, and for the first time in a long while, she saw a flicker of the man she fell in love with. But the fear was still there, lurking just beneath the surface. "Maybe we should talk to someone," he suggested hesitantly, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope. They had a long road ahead, but perhaps they could find their way back to each other. As they stood in the kitchen, the air thick with unspoken words, Sarah realized that love was not just about passion, it was about understanding and support. And maybe, just maybe, they could rebuild what had been lost. As Sarah stepped into the bustling grocery store in her neighborhood, she felt a mix of determination and vulnerability. She had chosen her outfit carefully, fitted black jeans that hugged her curves and a crisp white blouse that framed her figure elegantly. Underneath, she wore delicate red lace lingerie, a small secret that made her feel confident and alluring. It had been a long time since she had felt that way. While navigating the aisles, she spotted her neighbor, Mark, a striking man in his mid-30s with a warm smile and an easy charm. He was someone she had always admired from afar, but today, their paths crossed in a way that made her heart race. "Hey, Sarah. You look amazing today," he said, his eyes lighting up as he approached her. The compliment sent a rush of warmth to her cheeks, and she felt a flutter of something she hadn't experienced in a while. Was it attraction? "Thank you, Mark," she replied, her voice slightly shaky. "I appreciate that." He leaned against the shelf, casually, as if they were old friends catching up. "What's on your shopping list today?" "Just the usual," she said, trying to keep her tone light. "You know, groceries for the week." Mark nodded, his gaze lingering a moment longer than necessary. "Want to grab a coffee after this? You seem like you could use a break." Sarah hesitated. The invitation was tempting, but her mind flickered back to David, her husband, who had been distant lately. I can't. I have to get home," she said, forcing a smile. "Another time, then," he said, his expression shifting to one of understanding. "Take care, Sarah." As she walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling of being seen, truly seen, for the first time in ages. It was a stark contrast to the way David had been treating her. His indifference felt like a weight pressing down on her chest. Returning home, Sarah found David in the kitchen, staring blankly at the counter. The sight of him, lost in thought, tugged at her heart. She approached him, her pulse quickening. "Can we talk about us?" she asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. David sighed, running a hand through his tousled hair. "I don't know, Sarah. I don't feel like myself lately," he admitted, his vulnerability surprising her. Later that week, Sarah found herself reflecting on her feelings. She had visited her doctor, seeking answers to the growing distance between her and David. "Doctor, my husband doesn't want to be intimate with me anymore." "Is there something wrong with me?" she had asked, her voice trembling with uncertainty. The doctor examined her and replied, "You're perfectly healthy, Sarah. The issue might be with your husband. He should consider seeing someone as well." When Sarah broached the topic with David, he had reacted with anger. "I'm not sick. I don't need to see a doctor," he snapped, his denial cutting deeper than she expected. Each day, Sarah felt more isolated. Her body was young and vibrant, with needs that David seemed unable or unwilling to acknowledge. She struggled to confide in her friends, feeling that the matter was too personal, too intimate to share. One afternoon, as she prepared to go grocery shopping, she dressed with care, hoping to boost her spirits. She slipped into her fitted black jeans and the white blouse that made her feel confident. At the store, she ran into Mark again. "Hey, Sarah. You look stunning," he said, his compliment washing over her like a warm embrace. "Thank you," she replied, feeling a familiar blush creep onto her cheeks. "Want to grab that coffee now?" he asked, his tone casual yet inviting. Caught off guard, Sarah hesitated, the weight of her situation pressing down on her. I'm not sure," she stammered, her heart racing. "Just a friendly coffee." "You seem like you could use some company," he said, his smile reassuring. With a deep breath, she nodded. "Okay, let's do it." As they walked to a nearby cafe, Sarah felt a mix of excitement and guilt. She was stepping into uncharted territory, but for the first time in a long while, she felt alive. Sarah felt a rush of excitement mixed with apprehension as she sat across from Mark in the cozy cafe. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped them, and the soft chatter of other patrons created a warm, inviting atmosphere. "I didn't expect you to say yes," Mark said, leaning back in his chair, his blue eyes sparkling with genuine interest. "I thought you might be too busy." "I guess I needed a break," Sarah replied, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. "It's been a while since I've done something like this." Mark smiled, his expression encouraging. "You deserve it. So, tell me about yourself. What do you do when you're not grocery shopping?" As they talked, Sarah found herself opening up in ways she hadn't anticipated. She shared stories about her job at the local library, her love for books, and her passion for painting. Mark listened intently, nodding and asking questions that made her feel valued and interesting. "You're a really talented artist," he said, his voice warm. "I'd love to see your work sometime." "Maybe," she said, a hint of shyness creeping in. "It's just a hobby." "Still, it's a part of you," he insisted. "And I think it's amazing." The conversation flowed effortlessly, and Sarah felt a spark of connection that had been missing in her life for far too long. Mark's laughter was infectious, and she found herself laughing more than she had in months. "You know," he said, leaning closer, "you're a beautiful woman, Sarah. David is lucky to have you." His words sent a thrill through her, igniting a warmth that spread from her cheeks to her chest. "Thank you," she said softly, her heart racing at the compliment. As they finished their coffee, Mark suggested they take a walk in the nearby park. "It's a beautiful day, and I'd love to continue our conversation outside," he said, his smile inviting. Sarah hesitated for a moment, the weight of her marriage pressing down on her. But the thought of returning to the emptiness of her home made her heart sink. "Okay," she agreed, feeling a mix of excitement and guilt. The park was alive with the sounds of children playing and birds chirping. They strolled along the winding paths, the sun casting a warm glow over everything. Mark shared stories about his travels, and Sarah found herself captivated by his adventurous spirit. "Have you ever thought about traveling?" he asked, glancing at her with curiosity. "Not really," she admitted. "I've always been too focused on work and home." "You should," he encouraged. "There's a whole world out there waiting for you." As they walked, Sarah felt a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced in years. Mark's presence was refreshing, and she found herself drawn to his easygoing nature. They stopped by a small pond, where ducks paddled lazily, and Mark turned to her, his expression serious. "Sarah, can I ask you something?" he said, his tone shifting. "Sure," she replied, her heart pounding. "Are you happy in your marriage?" he asked, his gaze steady. The question caught her off guard, and she felt a lump form in her throat. I don't know," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Things have been difficult." Mark nodded, his expression understanding. "You deserve to be happy. Everyone does." His words resonated deeply within her, and for the first time, she felt seen. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of the conversation hanging in the air. "Let's just enjoy today," Mark suggested, breaking the tension. "We can talk more later." Sarah smiled, grateful for his kindness. They continued their walk, the conversation shifting to lighter topics, but the underlying tension lingered. Later that evening, as Sarah returned home, she felt different. The mundane sights of her house seemed to take on a new perspective. David was sprawled on the couch, engrossed in a game on TV, oblivious to her arrival. "Hey," she said, trying to sound cheerful. "Hey," he replied, barely glancing her way. As she walked past him, she couldn't shake the feeling of longing that had grown inside her. The warmth of Mark's attention lingered in her mind, and she found herself replaying their conversations, his compliments echoing in her thoughts. That night, as she lay in bed, Sarah couldn't help but reflect on her day. Mark's words about being a beautiful woman resonated within her, igniting a flicker of hope. Was it possible that she could feel desired again? The next day, her phone buzzed with a message from Mark. "I had a great time yesterday. Can we meet again?" Her heart raced as she read the text. "I don't know, Mark. This might be wrong," she typed back, uncertainty creeping in. "Why?" "We're just friends," he replied, but she could sense the underlying tone of something more. Taking a deep breath, she finally responded, "Okay. Let's meet again." As the days passed, Sarah found herself looking forward to their meetings. Each time, she dressed with more intention, choosing outfits that made her feel confident, a fitted red dress that hugged her curves and a pair of elegant heels that clicked against the pavement as she walked. Mark's reaction was always the same, his eyes widened, and he would compliment her, making her feel special. "You look stunning," he would say, and each time, it felt like a spark igniting within her. During their third meeting, they shared a meal at a quaint Italian restaurant, the atmosphere intimate and cozy. They laughed over shared stories, and Mark leaned in closer, his voice low. "Sarah, you're such a special woman. Are you happy with David?" The question hung in the air, heavy with meaning. "Honestly, no," she replied, her voice steady. "We just don't connect anymore." "Then why stay?" he asked, his gaze piercing through her defenses. "I don't know," she admitted, feeling vulnerable. "I guess I'm afraid." "Fear shouldn't hold you back from happiness," Mark said softly. "You deserve more." In that moment, Sarah felt the walls she had built around her heart begin to crumble. She looked into Mark's eyes, and for the first time, she allowed herself to consider the possibility of something new, something real. "Sarah," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I think I'm falling for you." As Sarah and Mark continued to meet, the connection between them deepened, igniting feelings that Sarah had long thought extinguished. One evening, while they were sitting on a bench overlooking the shimmering waters of Lake Michigan, Mark turned to her with a serious expression. "Sarah, I need to be honest with you," he said, his voice steady yet gentle. "I know you're married, but I can't help but feel something strong between us." Taken aback, Sarah felt a rush of emotions. "Mark, I'm married," she replied, her heart racing. "I can't just walk away from that." "I understand," he said, his gaze unwavering. "But are you truly happy? You deserve to be with someone who appreciates you for who you are." His words struck a chord within her. She had been feeling increasingly disconnected from David, her husband, who seemed more interested in his work than in their relationship. "You're right," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I haven't been happy for a while now." Mark leaned closer, the warmth of his presence enveloping her. "You're an incredible woman, Sarah. You deserve to feel cherished and valued." In that moment, Sarah felt a flicker of hope. She had spent years feeling invisible, but Mark's attention made her feel alive again. As if sensing her vulnerability, he reached out and gently took her hand, sending a jolt of electricity through her. "Can I kiss you?" he asked, his eyes searching hers for permission. Caught off guard, Sarah hesitated for a heartbeat before nodding. Their lips met softly, and in that instant, the world around them faded away. It was a kiss filled with longing and desire, awakening feelings she thought had been buried. She felt beautiful, desired, and alive, as if the weight of her marriage had momentarily lifted. After that night, a secret relationship blossomed between Sarah and Mark. They met in hidden corners of the city, sharing stolen moments filled with laughter and affection. Each encounter left Sarah feeling exhilarated yet guilty. She was torn between the joy Mark brought her and the loyalty she felt towards David. "Sarah, you're amazing," Mark would often say, his voice filled with sincerity. "You deserve to be happy." But as the weeks turned into months, the guilt began to gnaw at her. David remained oblivious to her growing distance, consumed by his own life. One evening, she gathered the courage to confront him. "David, I think we need to talk," she said, her heart pounding. "What about?" he replied, barely looking up from his laptop. "I think we should see a therapist." "Maybe they can help us," she suggested, hoping for a breakthrough. David's reaction was immediate and explosive. "I'm not the problem here, Sarah. You are. You're the one who's unhappy." His words cut deep, leaving her feeling wounded and misunderstood. In contrast, Mark was always there to support her, accepting her for who she was without judgment. "You're perfect just the way you are," he would say, making her feel cherished. As their secret relationship continued, Sarah felt more beautiful than she had in years. Mark's affection made her feel valued, but the reality of her situation weighed heavily on her. She knew she had to make a decision, either confront the issues in her marriage or end it altogether. One evening, after a particularly tense day, Sarah sat down with David for a serious conversation. "This can't go on like this," she said, her voice firm. "We need to either get help or consider separating." David's face registered shock, his eyes widening in disbelief. "You can't be serious," he stammered, clearly unprepared for her ultimatum. But Sarah was resolute. She had spent too long feeling unfulfilled and was ready to take control of her happiness. The time for change had come, and she was determined to find her path, whatever it might entail. Sarah took a deep breath, her heart racing as she faced David in their small, cluttered living room in Seattle. "What are you talking about?" he replied, barely glancing up from his laptop, the glow of the screen illuminating his distracted expression. "We've been married for 6 years, and we don't have a normal relationship." "This can't go on like this," she insisted, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. David's eyes widened, a mix of disbelief and irritation crossing his face. "You can't be serious," he stammered, clearly unprepared for her ultimatum. "We've had our ups and downs, but we can work through it." "No, David. We need to see a therapist." "Maybe they can help us," she suggested, her voice firm yet hopeful. The silence that followed felt heavy, filled with the weight of unspoken words and unresolved issues. After a long pause, David finally responded, "Fine, I'll go to therapy." His tone was begrudging, but Sarah felt a flicker of hope. Yet, doubts crept in, was it too late for them? Days turned into weeks, and David attended his sessions, revealing issues that had long been buried. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he said one evening, his voice thick with emotion. "I didn't realize how much I've hurt you." His apology struck a chord, but Sarah felt a pang of sadness. It was too late, she had already found solace in someone else. "David, it's too late. I've fallen for someone else," she confessed, her heart racing as she spoke the truth that had been gnawing at her. The shock on his face was palpable. "Who?" he demanded, his voice rising with anger. "Mark," she replied softly, the name hanging in the air like a heavy fog. David's expression shifted from anger to a resigned understanding. "I neglected you, didn't I? I pushed you away," he admitted, a hint of regret coloring his words. The realization hit Sarah hard. David's acknowledgement of his shortcomings was a bittersweet relief, but it didn't change the fact that her heart had already chosen another path. They both knew that their love had faded, replaced by a deep-seated resentment and unfulfilled needs. Eventually, they made the difficult decision to divorce. The process was fraught with emotional turmoil, but it was also liberating. Sarah felt a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced in years. She and Mark began to build a life together, filled with laughter and understanding. "Sarah, you deserve to be happy," Mark would often say, his eyes warm and inviting. Their relationship blossomed, and she felt cherished in a way she hadn't thought possible. As the final papers were signed, Sarah looked at Mark, a smile breaking across her face. "I can't believe we're finally free," she said, her voice filled with hope. "Together, we can create something beautiful," he replied, taking her hand in his. In the aftermath of her divorce, Sarah learned the importance of self-worth and the beauty of being desired. She had spent too long feeling like a victim in her marriage, but now she embraced her newfound freedom with open arms. "Women in situations like mine should not stay silent," she thought, feeling empowered to share her story. "It's time to seek happiness and fight for what we deserve." As she and Mark walked hand in hand through the vibrant streets of Seattle, Sarah felt a sense of belonging and love that she had longed for. She was ready to embrace the future, knowing that she was worthy of all the joy it could bring. Subscribe to the channel,